Hello, welcome to the Good Growth Podcast. We welcome back two former guests to the show, both retail experts, to discuss and analyse the state of play in retail, both online and on the high street, following two rather turbulent years for businesses. We're going to address how consumer behaviour has changed over that time, as well as visiting the rise of sustainability in shopping, and a look ahead to what we can expect into 2022 and beyond. So a warm welcome, firstly, to the CEO of LK Bennett and Chairman at Good Growth, Darren Topp, and also the Global Operations Director at FatFace, Mark Wright. I'd like to open this up a bit, obviously with, I suppose, the environmental focus was certainly on businesses and governments towards the end of last year with COP26, particularly around online shopping, particularly fashion as well. Customers have lots of options to receive their orders, and whether they want it same day, they can have these monthly subscriptions, unlimited free deliveries. But we're certainly seeing more environmentally conscious consumers as well. I'm actually going to change that and come to you first, Darren, on this. To what extent do you see sustainability playing a part in the consumer mindset going forward, particularly when they're choosing not just what to purchase, but who to purchase from?
I think this is going to be the big challenge for retailers in the future. And the reality is we are all pretty poor at this, in my view, because just the nature of what we do makes it difficult. It's a bit like, the airline industry is difficult to be green. What we do makes it complicated. And the reality of it, Dan, is there's quite a lot of greenwashing going on, in my view. And when you think that most of what we sell in the UK is made in China, and that is not round the corner, and our control of the way some of it is done or not done, makes some of this really tricky. And it's quite interesting because I think one of the challenges here is that actually our clothes have become just too cheap. So when I was your age and I bought a wool suit from Marks and Spencer, they used to sell an Italian wool suit and it was £199. 35 years later, it's still £199. That just can't be right. That, I mean, now it used to be made in Italy. It's not made in Italy anymore, the M&S suit. So this is one of the challenges. So, and if you look at, LK Bennett happens to be in a different space because of but look at the prices we charge compared to what, we don't sell a pair of, we sell a pair of ladies' court shoes for £225. That's our basic court shoe. Well, that's, most people in the UK wouldn't choose to spend that kind of money or couldn't choose to spend that kind of money on a pair of shoes, but they are made in Italy. So, 75% of the products I sell are made in the UK and Europe. I do make silk in China. But this is going to be really tricky for us all because, I sell leather. I sell, all my shoes are leather. So I think businesses starting to get their head around some of this is going to be really, really challenging. And it's going to be challenging for us as well because, all that, online free delivery, free returns encourages, people to buy more than they need and send some of it back. Well, it don't go back by carrier pigeon. It's driven back and not always in electric vehicles. And, even electric vehicles generate, the energy comes, by burning gas predominantly in the UK. So listen, I think this is so. I think a lot of companies are really waking up to it. I hasten to add as well. They're starting to really. So I think there's a lot of good work being done around reducing the carbon footprint of our businesses for sure, across all sectors and in all price points. But the truth is, this is a really big challenge for any consumer-led business.
Yeah, the way you sort of lay that out, the challenges are on the same level as the sort of governmental challenges in many ways. The logistics and sort of being able to go back through the, currently how you're doing things and trying to make changes here and there is not straightforward. It's just going, let's do that because there's so many impacts.
No, and if your business is buying a lot of products in China and there's some challenges there, you've got to get it into the UK. I mean, all that it can't happen without consuming energy. And we've become used to, whether we like it or not, as a country, we've become used to cheap food and cheap clothes. in real terms, they've never ever been cheaper. And actually, I think one of the things we've seen is that people are buying probably a bit less but a bit better, and buying, choosing to have a few things in their wardrobe rather than lots of things in their wardrobe. But my consumer's slightly older, she thinks slightly different, so there's compete. I've got two daughters in their 20s, talk to me all the time about the environment, and then they'll go and buy clothes from at rock bottom prices and want to change them with the level of frequency that is not environmentally friendly. So there's a real contradiction here, isn't there?
Yeah. Mark, what are your customers demanding that sustainable approach from you as well?
Yeah, I think Darren hit the nail on the head that it's any fashion business that is selling clothes in its own existence, we need to be careful there's not a contradiction, because but fat face is not fast fashion. So if I refer to it, I'm really proud. One of the reasons I love where I work at the moment is Fat Face is really committed to this. So it started working with the Ethical Trade Institute in 2008. It set up its own foundation in 2009. That foundation is fundraising. We now have 2 shops based in Havant near headquarters. The foundation itself has raised more than £1 million for charitable causes since that time. And the reality is we make and sell clothes, or we source and sell clothes. Those are sourced through 170 partners based in 13 different countries in the world, not predominantly UK or nearby, as Darren said. But I think now it's about making long-term commitments, and it's about providing choice. I don't think you can preach on this. To Darren's point on greenwashing, I think the important thing is that there's real authenticity to it. So we are really honest with ourselves about what we're doing. So we've, just before Christmas, we announced a partnership with the National Forest. So we've announced a 75-year partnership with the National Forest that will see 600,000 trees planted in over 40 hectares. And that's part of our long-term commitment. We'd already, in our sustainability pledges 2 years ago, committed to go carbon neutral by 2025. All of our stores are run on renewable electricity. We are looking at every part of our operation, but doing that and balancing cost, as Darren said, is really difficult, particularly the shift to e-com, because what customers say they want and how they behave are very different. The expectation around, I want it delivered now, whatever it is, whether they really need it delivered immediately, given we are a casual based retailer, is interesting in itself. But I think providing choices is the way that certainly we as an organisation are looking. So we started working with an organisation called Thrift Plus, which is about being able to resell a product that customers have loved, but is still in great condition and can be used for good causes. So we partnership with Thrift. We give customers the choice to opt to get a bag sent to them, and we can also provide them in stores. We've had nearly 3,000 customers take up that offer, and 25% have chosen to give the donation straight to charity. So they don't want any money, they don't want any commission. They're just pleased that they're, it's stuff that they've had enough of now, but it's still in great nick, can go on to somebody else and close somebody else at great quality. So I think for me, it's about choices, and that's the way I keep looking at this now. Probably we all project how we live our lives personally and thinking about this, but you can't ignore, for it be it David Attenborough on Green Planet through to the impact of the COP Forum.
Sure.
It's very real, isn't it? It's very real.
Sure.
So I think doing it in a way that's not preachy, but explaining, and I think the cost pressure bit that Darren mentioned is the hardest one. For the consumer, I think as sort of awareness builds again, people will realise you can't have your cake and eat it. You've got to consider the impact.
I think it's really interesting because I think customers are thinking differently as well. So, we launched what we called LK Borrowed in the back end of the summer, which is basically a rental service, for want of a better word. You can you get a couple of items a month to rent. They come back to us, we clean them, and they go back to customers. I mean, 10 years ago, people would not have bought, in effect, second-hand clothes. Because that's what that is. It's, people would not have done that. Certainly not in our market. They would not have done that. So there's definitely a move, and everyone's starting to have an impact. So, while I think, people can be critical of the fashion industry, and I think it's fair, and we've got to take it on the chin. Having said that, everyone from the high volume, fast fashion, all the way to, people selling £25,000 handbags, everybody's having a look at what they do and how they can reduce their impact. And that's got to be the right thing to do. And we've got to encourage that. And the government have got to think about how they might incentivize that and that move quicker. But as I say, I think we're going to have to, if we're going to do this in a green way, it's going to cost everyone more money, I'm afraid. It's just a fact. It's just a fact that these things will cost more to do and to do properly. It's no different than if you buy free range eggs and have battery ends. I mean, virtually nobody buys battery end eggs now. We've got so good at it that free range is like the normal now, isn't it? And it's the same. If you want a free range chicken, it's going to cost you more than a chicken that's that's grown differently, and that's going to be no different in clothing.
Yeah, and I think that also nicely links to Mark's point of choice as well. Consumer behaviour, habits, like you said, will probably change and evolve over time.
And we're all contradictory, aren't we? We're all contradictory.
Sure. Yeah.
We all want to reduce our carbon footprint, but
still want to go on holiday.
People want to go on holiday. People like driving 4x4s, and they're not all petrol. And people like to go on lots of, with the pandemic, most of us have not been on holiday, and we're all desperate to go and have a couple of weeks somewhere in the sunshine. So, this stuff's important, really important. And, I agree with Mark around personal choice, and we've just got to try and make it as easy as we can for them to make the right choices for them and for the environment.
I just want to spend the last couple of minutes looking ahead for this year and perhaps beyond. Mark, can you give us a look ahead into the challenges and opportunities for FatFace over the next, say, 12 months? And of course, you've now got, as you talked about last time, you're growing in the US. How might that differ between your UK Irish arm of the business versus the setup in America?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, Dan. I mean, I think probably the common challenges are, first one is consumer confidence. It's just actually how we come out of this phase now and people get back to, can't use the word new norm, but I think it's changed again because, the unexpected rise of another variant just put everybody on their toes again. But I think people now are so wanting to get on with their lives and find ways of living with some of that disruption. So I think consumer confidence is the first challenge, but I think actually people are quite fickle wherever they're based in the world, and wanting the sort of herd of consumer will get back to some new patterns. So feeling that will be a short-term challenge. I think cost remains very real, because it's squeezing our customers' pockets, it's squeezing us in terms of all the things that we need to commit to. We talked on this call, be it sustainability, sourcing, online delivery expectations, all of that is putting more pressure on margins. And of course, retailers then got to decide what they're passing on to the customer and what they're taking themselves. And I think that is a really big challenge. Supply chain still hasn't settled. We've had a very disrupted Christmas. We had some Christmas stuff land in mid-January because which is, it's not easy to sell kids onesies post-peak.
With Santa Claus on.
So I think supply chain is going to take a little bit of time to just settle down, and we've changed some of our seasonality and our planning during this year, so that will come through. Internationally is interesting. So our US performance, where we've got 20 stores based around New England down, and we've just actually during the pandemic we had signed off but have opened 3 stores near Washington, which is the first time we've sort of branched into new geography. They've all performed really well, and the US business has performed stronger, has recovered more strongly and quicker than the UK. So that for us, some of our challenges out there is pure digital growth, because we cannot afford, and it's a big place, we cannot afford to keep sort of planting flags. So we've been working with direct mail to increase our reach to new customers. Challenges there include worldwide paper shortages. I mean, you can't write it really every which way, but in the US, it's very much about pure digital growth for us, and how we use our stores to promote experience, and a British brand that sits amongst pure independence. US market towns and locations are very different to the UK, because it's the shopping malls have got all the brands. We sit amongst local traders, so that's quite
a lot of mum and pop stores, isn't they? They call them. A lot of those.
There really is. And then I think beyond that, in Ireland, we're still overcoming Brexit, Dan. So it's I don't want to mention the woes of it with everything else, but I was going to say that's another podcast. It is. But we've not been able. We've had to, for some internal reasons and external, but really limit into international beyond the US. So even getting stuff in and out of Ireland has proved pretty horrendous. So I think there's probably enough challenges there. All that said, I'm optimistic, because I think we will come out of this quicker. I think people will enjoy social contact and physically shopping in stores and meeting, as well as they will the convenience of online. So from a multi-channel point of view, I'm feeling good about 2022.
So Darren, what do you see being the key factors at play then?
Well, I'd echo Mark's optimism. So I feel confident about 22. I think the back end of the summer of 21 and autumn of 21 should give everyone a bit of confidence that actually, people wanted to get back to normal pretty quickly, and were keen to go to parties and weddings and wanted to get out, and that's encouraging, I think, for all of us. And I'd echo a lot of what Mark said in terms of pressures, because they're clearly there. I suppose one I would add would be around people. I think businesses have got to think really hard about how we continue to retain and motivate our teams, because this is one of the most competitive marketplaces I've seen in terms of people being able to go and get another job. And we all thought, me included, that that out of the pandemic we might end up with high unemployment and real challenge, and we've ended up with the opposite. So there's going to be a lot of inflationary pressure around salaries as well. But it's not going to be just about money. And then one of the lessons we learned in the last couple of years, I think, is it's not about money. I mean, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, Dan, what did I think about working from home? I would have said, I'm not a fan. I really wasn't a fan. And one of the lessons I've learned in the last 2 years is that I was wrong. And actually there's a place for it in the new world and the new future, and it will help people balance, the work and their personal lifestyles better, and we should embrace that. We should see that as a positive outcome of the last couple of years. I think there's clearly a lot of inflationary pressure in the system, and not just on people's salaries, but everywhere. And Mark's articulated that really well. Because of where we source our product, we haven't seen the same supply chain challenges. But with my previous hats on at Arcadia, BHS, and Marks and Spencer, I know if you're trying to get Christmas crackers and Christmas gifts in stores, in September, it doesn't have to be very late, and it's too late, So I can see those, even though we personally haven't had them. But what I would say about international, Mark specifically talked about America, but they say we're a nation of shopkeepers, and I think that's true in one sense. But actually, British brands are loved abroad because we generally do a pretty good job. And you walk up and down the high street, and I look at, lots of different players, and often not, plenty of them not in my personal space. And I think, actually they do a really bloody good job, these people. So we've all got a big opportunity internationally, because as a country, we do this pretty well. We're innovative and creative, and you look online or in the high streets, there's some fantastic brands that you can see got a massive opportunity abroad, and we feel that, as I know Mark does at Backpace, but so will every other retailer. That's a big opportunity for us for sure.
plenty of reasons to be optimistic from what I'm gathering from you guys, and I would echo that as well. Loads to take away from this conversation. Thank you so much for your time, both of you today. Great to have you on again. Yeah, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.